All right, Jennifer, if you can, in your own words, introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what you're all about.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I studied journalism at USC, and right as I graduated, right as the publishing industry was crashing. So I thought, what can I do? What can I do well? And I knew how to write. And a lot of my colleagues and classmates from USC were starting to work at marketing agencies. So I quickly got a job at a digital marketing agency, and I saw how much brands were spending on content that wasn't very good and wasn't resonating with their target audience. So I thought, how can I get closer to the content? I need to get closer to the creators. So I, from there, went on to work at several influencer marketing agencies, traveling the world, working with Fortune 500 brands, entertainment studios, and kind of started my career in the space.
Yeah, awesome. So SHEIN is an absolute rocket ship, right, in the last decade. The growth is just incredible and has gone on to become one of the largest fashion retailers in the entire world. And that's in no small part due to the program that you created that is building this incredible social network and influencer scale. Can you talk to me, though, about the origins of the program? Like, what initiated it? How did it come to be?
Yes. So I was actually introduced to the brand back in 2019 when they were my client at my last influencer marketing agency. And I knew I was in for a wild ride or a rocket ship per se, right? When I did their first ever Coachella activation, I booked all the influencers that they were going to be hosting. And I remember on Saturday of weekend one, they were like, "Can you do weekend two as well?" And I was like, "Of course." And from there, I met the president of US, George, and quickly kind of developed a rapport with him. And he was like, "Why am I hiring your agency? Like, come work for me and lead influencer marketing for one of the biggest brands in the world no one's ever heard of yet." And he sold me on the dream. And from there, I was one of the first 15 hires in the US for marketing. And I built everything from the ground up. I built process was there when there was no process, workflows where there were no workflows, a lot of which are still in place today. Scaled the team from one, myself, to now eight for influencer and talent. And essentially, there's like three different buckets of what we work on. Hold on, I got to get my little clicker. So there's our sales driven partnerships. These are our marketing initiatives where we partner with influencers to drive awareness to like our Cyber Mondays, our Black Fridays. So here we have some content like from our Valentine's Day activation. We're drawing awareness to like our different Shein trend stores. Then we have our celebrity partnerships. So we have partnered with Anita, who is one of the biggest pop stars in Latin music. This is her third collection with us that I have playing. It was a sustainable collection. All of the garments were made from recycled materials. We're showing off that sustainability is sexy. And we partnered with everyone from the likes of Madeleine Petsch from Riverdale, Lily Pons. So that's a big part of my job is negotiating those contracts, making sure the brand is getting we need from a marketing perspective. And then I think lastly, we have our offline events where we're partnering with our social brand PR, all of our different marketing functions to make sure we integrate talent into every program. So Shein is the official retail sponsor of Stagecoach. So working to make sure we have that talent present on site at those events. Last week we we're at Rolling Loud hosting influencers, which is a big like hip hop music festival in LA. So I think between those are like at a very high level, like the three big functions of the department.
Yeah, you make it sound so simple, but at the end of the day, right, like it has to be incredibly challenging to try to stay on top of the latest trends, what people care about, what are those viral moments that you can tap into, and even beyond those, like the people themselves, the individuals, identifying those right people. How do you keep pace? Like, how do you actually stay on top of all of these developing moments and trends to tap into? Are you just up until like 3 a.m. doom scrolling on TikTok every night? Like, what's the approach?
I have two kids, so I have to sleep. But I will say, I think there's when you talk about trends, there's two types of trends.
Oh, John, help.
maybe I don't. Hold on. Hello?
You're in.
Okay, so when we talk about trends, there's two different types of trends that we're looking at. There's fashion and there's social media. And I think for fashion, what a lot of people don't realize is at its core, SHEIN is actually a tech company. And so we have an on-demand business model where we use real-time data and analytics to analyze trends. So essentially, if you like what you see, we make more of it. If you don't, we don't. And we have a very efficient production process. So we're able to go from design to production in as little as 2 weeks. And for every garment that you see on the site, every SKU, like take for example my top, there's 100 to 200 of each item in stock. And I've seen batches as little as 25. So there's not that traditional excess inventory that you may see with a retail store. On the social media side, I think it's important to be on these platforms. My team and I are doom scrolling per se, or we're constantly on these platforms engaging with the influencers. We're aware of how the algorithm's changing because we're on them constantly. And we have direct relationships with influencers. So if something's changing, we're able to shoot them a DM, a text, call, see them at an event, and ask them, how is this affecting your page? Like, how is this affecting your account? Like, what are you seeing? What's trending? And then, so I think between, being on the platforms, having the direct relationships, and then reading the trades, you're able to like keep abreast of what's going on in the space.
Yeah, I love that. Now, are there any tools that you're using that are helping to complement and help you keep pace with the speed of change?
Yes, I mean, definitely there's a lot of different tools that we use. We use a platform called Tribe Dynamics. It's now owned by Creator IQ, to monitor like paid and earned influencer partnerships. We use another tool called Dash Hudson for our owned and operated social, to monitor performance, see what's working, what's not working. We use Meltwater for brand sentiment and seeing how that affects the media cycle. And then we use another tool called Hype Auditor for audience demographic info. So when we're sourcing influencers, we can gauge like who is their audience and their engagement rates. It's also good when we're sourcing, if, for example, like if we have a pop-up in Nashville and we need to reach out to local influencers in Nashville, like we can use that tool to help identify. And while technology is great, I think at the end of the day, you need boots on the ground, and you have to have a really strong team. And I really prioritize making sure my team is able to work together really creatively and effectively, because at the end of the day, you need a human. Like you need to like develop these relationships. We want our relationships with influencers to be foundational and not transactional.
I love that. So let's start talking a bit about the content itself. How do you balance, if you can, the dynamic between what your brand objectives are and then the creative liberty that an individual influencer is probably going to want to retain or express in their own approach to the content that you've worked with them to start generating?
I think striking that right balance is difficult and challenging for everyone. Um, I think at Shein, we've worked really hard to identify key requirements, that we feel resonate with our brand and also resonate with the influencer. I think it's really important to not overwhelm your influencer with too many talking points. At the end, I mean, my agency days, I would see like novels that brands would send me, like that they wanted the influencers to hit, and I'm like, no one is going to read this. Like, this is a chapter book. Like, we need to get this down to like 3 messaging points, like 3 sentences. And these influencers are busy. They're shooting content like in between, like traveling the world and going to different events. So you only have them for like a short amount of time. So you need to make sure your brief is really clear. I always tell my team, you need to take yourself out of it. And if you were receiving this information, like, would you understand what to do? It's because it's hard because you're like inside baseball. So to us, it may seem easy, but for an influencer, it may not be so simple. And so we use a lot of visual guides. We want to spark their creativity, but also keep our brand objectives in mind. And I think at the end of the day, it is a business relationship, but it is so important for us to like strike that right balance as closely as we can.
Yeah, and so then you kind of mentioned this a bit ago around the speed at which you're turning around new garments and new ideas. A 2 week design cycle is just insane. That is
Mhm.
wild. So, what's the actual life cycle of your influencer content? Like, does it have permanence? Are there ways of stretching it, extending it, so you're not just in this constant churn? Like, what's the approach there?
I think it all depends on the campaign and the partnership. So, for example, a sales driven campaign that I showed for Valentine's Day, there's a finite amount of time attached to that. There's a certain period of weeks you can promote before Valentine's Day because you need enough time for your customer to buy the product and receive it for Valentine's Day. And the same as we need content for our owned and operated socials for Valentine's Day. So that one is more compact. Whereas something like a celebrity partnership, that's more long tail. That can go for several months to a year. And then, of course, for those sales driven partnerships, we do one-off partnerships with influencers to gauge performance, assess if it's a fit for our brand and theirs. But the goal of those partnerships is for it to develop into something long term. So take, for example, there's an influencer that I've been working with since May of 2019 when I started with the company. Her name is Leslie Quezada. Les Do Makeup. She's a fashionista, she's a beauty guru, she's a mom, she's a wife. And every year I meet with her team and go over like, what are we going to do this year? Like, how can SHEIN be integrated into the important milestones of your life? And last year she came to us and was like, listen, she makes these crazy cakes that you would see on like the Food Network, where I'm sure all of us in this room spend a lot of money on our kids' birthday cakes. Like she can make all those like crazy cakes. And she's like, I love making these cakes. She goes live on her socials and she'll like document the whole process. Like hundreds of thousands of people are watching her make a cake that will burn on fire and say happy birthday. And she's like, I buy all my kitchen gadgets from Shein. Like we should be doing something together. So we did a whole Let's Do Makeup cake miss activation. She made 3 different cakes on our Shein Live. We have a weekly live stream on our app that averages 180,000 unique viewers per episode, which is wild. We go live 3 to 4 times a week. And she documented the process of making these cakes, and all of the accoutrements like that you see on those cakes right there are from Shein. And so that was a really fun partnership. And, this year we're going to be doing more. Obviously, we're going to be doing more stuff to launch into like more aspects of her personality. But we want to be with our influencers as they grow and be a part of their life as well.
And I love this because I think it starts to even answer my next question that I'm really interested in, which is how do you balance out the long form and the short form content? Like, is there a desired mix there? Are you leaving that up to an extent to the influencer themselves? Like, what are you kind of thinking as you're crafting the individual pieces?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day too, it like depends on the campaign. It depends on the influencer, their audience. What are the KPIs for that specific campaign? I think if we're looking at this at a very high level, like we've noticed shorter is better. But we do have influencers that, are making 10-minute videos long on TikTok now. I find myself watching them a lot of the time. So we're always down to like test different formats and different lengths. I mean, YouTube is also still a very viable medium for us for influencer that drives a lot of conversion. So we're still really active on there as much as we are on TikTok and Reels and all of those other great platforms.
So then as we kind of like turn attention away from the content itself, let's look at the actual partnerships. So how do you identify who the right partners are? And are there times when you have to just say this isn't a good fit? And when do you identify that it's time to say no?
Yes, I think learning to say no is very empowering, like professionally and personally. One of the things that I struggled with when I first started at SHEIN was I was coming from an agency mindset. And so in the agency mindset, you're trying to make your client happy and you're trying to make your influencers happy, and no one's really 100% happy. You're kind of like Stretch Armstrong in the middle. And so one of the most valuable feedback that George gave me when I started with SHEIN was like, you have one point of view now. Like, it's the brand's point of view. Like, it's okay to say no. You don't have to try so hard to make something work. And I really kept that with me. And like, if an influencer, you can tell if they're not excited about the partnership, it's okay to walk away. It's okay to, and I always tell my partners and managers, talent agents, influencers, like when we're meeting, like, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you say no. Like, it's better that we both be transparent and, not waste anyone's time. And the audience are so savvy online, and they can tell when a partnership is not authentic, and they will let you know in the comments. They will say, blink twice if you're there, if you want to be here. So we don't want to see those types of comments, right? So we want to make sure it feels organic and authentic for the influencer. And a lot of the times people do come back and suddenly they're very interested, but it's okay to walk away.
Now, on the other side of the campaign, right, like after you've established the partnership, you're working through it, content's coming out, how are you assessing the performance of it? What are the KPIs, the measurement pieces that you're looking for to say this was successful, it wasn't successful, do we move forward?
Yeah. So take our sales-driven partnerships. There are Valentine's Days, our Black Fridays, Cyber Monday. We are looking at website traffic. We're looking at purchases, conversion, like who's driving revenue. We're looking at new customers versus old customers. And so we can get really into that data to assess performance. Whereas some of our larger partnerships, like celebrity side, music festivals, or offline events, we're more so looking at anecdotal feedback. So brand lift, brand awareness, how are people reacting to this partnership? What are people talking about online? But it's all really depends, I think, on what the type of partnership is.
Now, I feel like those outcomes probably help shape this next question, but what do you look for in the delineation line between a good partnership and a bad partnership? Like, what are the hallmarks of successful influencer and talent deals?
Yeah, I think throughout my career, we definitely had some duds that I'll talk about maybe at a happy hour. But I think in terms of highlights, one of the partnerships that I most okay, hold on. One of the partnerships that I'm the most proud of is we did a festival partnership with an up-and-coming country singer named Priscilla Block. And Priscilla was always wearing SHEIN. She was always talking about us on her Instagram stories. She was wearing SHEIN on stage at her concerts. She was like, and her audience, her fans knew that she loved SHEIN. And I had a meeting with her agent at CAA, and he's like, listen, every time we onboard a talent as a client, they have to fill out a survey. And one of the questions we ask them is, what is your dream brand to work with? And she listed SHEIN. And I'm like, I know, she talks about us all the time on her socials. And she did our a festival collection that we have showing right here, the lookbook video. And she was so involved in picking the garments. Like, we were sending her line sheet. She was like circling the pieces that she wanted to feature. She was really involved in the look and feel of the lookbook video. She wanted it to feel authentic to her. We shot it in Nashville. We have her song playing, which you can't hear, but it's a great song, Off the Deep End, on the background of the lookbook. And she was performing at Stagecoach and Hangout Music Festival in the Gulf Shores that year, 2 music festivals that SHEIN is the official retail sponsor of. So she tied into our activations there. She wore SHEIN on stage. She would come on site to our footprint, interact with fans and influencers, and it was our highest converting partnership of the year, and she probably wasn't the most known influencer or celebrity that we partnered with that year, but because it was so authentic to her and her fans, like people really reacted so well to it.
Yeah, so when they're passionate, it really resonates and carries through then into the performance.
I think so.
So, are you noticing though, as and look, you work with a ton of influencers, you've scaled these programs for a long time. Are you starting to see any fatigue with influencer? Are people getting a little tired of the celebrity cruise ships and excursions and the hypersaturation of celebrity within their social feeds? Or do we have a ton of headroom left in this category to continue to grow and expand?
I mean, I think there's always a tipping point. We used to see supermodels on the cover of fashion magazines, and then we saw actors and pop stars on the cover of fashion magazines, and now we have influencers like Alex Earl and Emma Chamberlain on the cover of fashion magazines. So I think everything has that tipping point. But I think what keeps influencers so relevant and evolving is that it is so raw. Like, we're following these people, it's intimate. Like, we're holding them on our phone and we're with them at, different moments of their life, like when they lose their luggage on an international trip, and when they break a heel, like walking on a cobblestone street. So it it stays intimate, and we crave that relatability. I mean, for me, part of the reason why, like, in addition to all the budget that I saw being spent, I wanted to get into influencer because I saw it was influencing my purchase behavior. And even now, like, as a mom and a working mom, like, I don't have time to shop. Like, I go to the influencers that I like, I see what they're wearing, and I add it to my cart. And a lot of the time it's SHEIN. And will there be something next? I'm sure. Like, we had bloggers before we had influencers. Like, I'm excited to see what is next.
Yeah, it's a really interesting evolution of word of mouth, and it probably is word of mouth in its own way. But this has been so interesting. I want to end on one final question here, though. If someone in the crowd, new to the space, really wants to start scaling up their influencer program or dabbling into it, what advice would you give them, especially as we head into 2025 and the year beyond?
Know the space. You need to be active on these social platforms in order to have a strong influencer program. You cannot, I've heard people, oh, I don't have an Instagram. Okay, well, I don't think this is the right for you place for you. And I think hire the right people. Make sure that you can work creatively and effectively together. But you really need to be, like, on these platforms, active on these platforms in order to scale.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jennifer. I really appreciate all the insights you've given into SHEIN's influencer program. And now we'll turn it over to the crowd for the questions that you have. Oh, we already got one right in the back.
I love it. I love it.
So my question is twofold. You mentioned, oh, hi, I'm Cecilia. I work at MCM Worldwide, which is another fashion company. So my question is about the tracking KPIs and performance. You mentioned you're looking at the website traffic and conversions. Is that being tracked through the platform that you mentioned, or do you give them like an affiliate link or something else?
We use affiliate links. We use promo codes. We also can track through our Tribe Dynamics platform that we use, but it's definitely a combo.
Okay, got it. And then second part of the question, do you guys do any sort of organic seeding, meaning you're not asking the influencer to post, but you're just giving them like a PR package and then just seeing if they'll organically post on their own? And how do you track that?
Definitely. We do a lot of gifting. We do a lot of hosting, like at different events. We don't pay anyone, like for Stagecoach, for example, like we don't pay anyone to be there. It's just part of an experience. And that's what we use Tribe for. It's a great platform to track earned. You can set up a campaign, the dates, put your hashtags that you're looking to track, your app mentions, and it will populate and track all of the different socials, so you can see the posts and their estimated impressions, earned media value, reach, etc.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Doug Jensen, Estee Lauder. I'm a huge fan of Creator IQ and Tribe Dynamics as well. One of the things that we struggle with is how to handle a viral moment when it happens to you. And I didn't know if you had a point of view or a recommendation for brands in the room. So something really big hits you, you weren't expecting it. What is your plan to handle that and then work with that influencer or creator and then make that a bigger thing and a bigger engagement?
Yeah, I think you need to be really agile, right? Because these trends happen so quickly that you need to be very fast. One thing about SHEIN is we are one of the biggest brands in the world, but we operate like a late stage startup. So we're able to work really fast. And for example, we've had women go viral on TikTok for having a wedding dress like under $100 from SHEIN. And so being able to reach out to those influencers, say, okay, how can we be a part of your wedding? Like we saw your video, we loved it, we want to do more together. What can we do together? And like get on a call with them, see how we can partner. So I think just being as quick as we can, and then also in terms of just social media trends, being on these platforms, we're sending them to each other constantly and being like, did you see this trend? It's about people that are mispronouncing brand names. Like we need to jump on this because everyone says shine or sheen or it's SHEIN. We need to, get on it as quickly as possible.
What's the origin of the name?
SHEIN, like she's into fashion. Yeah.
Your competitor, she out.
Yeah, she's out.
It's my wife a lot. My wife is a lot. She's out a lot, my wife.
Oh no.
That's what happens when you're married to me, man. She out.
She out. Okay,
I need her in.
Well, give me her email. Let me send her some SHEIN.
Okay, good. We got a
keep her
deal.
at home.
We got a deal. All right. Any other questions? Any other questions?
All right. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.